this week on Christian World News. The U.S. spearheads a movement for religious freedom around the world. See how Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is fighting persecution and calling out the worst offenders. Plus, a new study unveils the true impact of Hurricane Maria's deadly force on Puerto Rico and why experts say the death toll was higher than they ever could imagine. And while most of Europe is rejecting religion, this nation is protecting Christianity against all odds. Welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. George Thomas is on assignment. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is taking a leading role in the fight for global religious freedom. And in a surprise move, he's calling together major offenders, even countries that are U.S. allies, to push for real reform. CBN's Jenna Browder shows us what this move could mean.
In 1998, then-Senator Sam Brownback helped champion a law to create an ambassador for religious freedom. Today, he holds that position and is ready to take action by going beyond simply releasing an annual report.
We must move religious freedom forward. We must defend it in every corner of the globe. And that's why the Secretary is hosting the first ever ministerial on advancing religious freedom.
This ministerial, we expect, will break new ground. It will not just be a discussion group. It will be about action. We look forward to identifying concrete ways to push back against persecution and ensure greater respect for religious freedom for all.
A key goal for the event will be to convince how countries hurt themselves by not allowing people to freely worship.
You have less terrorism if a country is religiously free, because people then can express their faith and instead of fighting you through terrorism. And this is in now all the economic and the scientific data.
Today also marked the release of the latest International Religious Freedom Report, highlighting problems in countries like Russia, Iran, Afghanistan, and North Korea. While Brownback believes naming and shaming these countries is important, he admits some type of punishment, such as economic or humanitarian sanctions, should follow.
We're pushing them forward.
To show his priority to the cause, Secretary of State Pompeo called it an international human right and said he was very intentional about making the July event his first opportunity to host international foreign ministers. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Thanks, Jenna. North Korea is one of the worst persecutors of Christians in the world. For believers there, professing faith in God could carry a death sentence. But one group is deploying a balloon Bible offensive to encourage the country's secret believers. Here's an exclusive look at their operation.
Just before sunset, a van load of Christians from Seoul heads north. We cannot show you their faces or reveal their names.
What we're doing could get us into trouble.
Where are we going today?
We're going here, some 4 miles from the North Korean border and close to the demilitarized zone.
The demilitarized zone, or DMZ, is one of the most heavily fortified and potentially dangerous places on Earth.
We'll just wait up here at the top of the stairs, sir.
1 million armed North Korean troops stand ready on their side of the DMZ. The South has just as many.
And as we get ready to head to this particular location, one factor that could ruin this whole thing is the weather.
One slight change in the wind direction could mess up the mission.
Peter has dubbed this Operation Dandelion.
We started this project back in 1991, and just as a dandelion needs the wind to spread its seed, we need the wind to spread the message.
That message is the Word of God, printed in the Korean language on thousands of bright orange balloons.
It's almost impossible to get Bibles into North Korea, so using balloons is one of the most effective ways to share the gospel.
A tank in the back of the van pumps helium into the balloons. The team works quickly, all the time keeping tabs on the wind direction. Prayers are whispered over each balloon. And then the release. A few minutes later, the balloons begin their slow drift across North Korean airspace.
By sending these balloons, we let our North Korean brothers and sisters know that we are praying for them, and the scriptures on the balloons are meant to encourage them.
The earnest prayers begin here at this undisclosed location in Seoul. Every week since 1991, 78-year-old Omon Duk, along with a handful of other believers, has been preparing each balloon for the flight into North Korea.
I was born in North Korea. This is my way of helping to get the gospel back to my countrymen.
And the process is almost done. They're just putting the final touches to today's balloon operation. In essence, this is how it works. They have a hole in here that they fill helium in, put a tape around it, and then off it goes into the skies of North Korea.
The helium will leak out of the balloon and eventually fall to the ground. And when someone picks it up, they'll be able to read all 16 chapters of the Book of Mark.
Peter used boats in the past with other groups to launch balloon offensives from the sea. These balloons are larger and contain a small radio, a Bible, and other Christian literature. In addition to the balloon operation, Peter's group organizes a weekly radio broadcast that's recorded in Seoul, then transmitted over medium and shortwave frequencies into North Korea.
The radio broadcast is like a regular church service with worship and preaching of the word. The North Korean government routinely tries to jam our signal, but we have other methods of getting the message across.
And this is what motivates the team. CBN News obtained exclusive audio recordings and photographs of secret underground church meetings inside North Korea. And when a North Korean accepts Jesus Christ, he or she will face persecution, imprisonment, and possibly death because of their faith. Peter gave CBN News footage that apparently aired on a Japanese television channel, allegedly showing the execution of North Korean Christians. Trying to get precise figures on the number of Christians today in North Korea is extremely difficult.
Based on data gathered from North Korean defectors and international human rights groups, we estimate there are approximately 30,000 Christians being held in political prison camps and about 10,000 underground believers who are in hiding throughout the country.
Back along a stretch of the North-South Korean border, it's a little past midnight. Using the cover of darkness, Peter's team continued to deploy hundreds of balloons at multiple locations. Today, the wind conditions have been good.
Often the winds will change suddenly and we have to wait. Sometimes we come back the next day. We are persistent. People's lives are on the line. We will continue to do this and continue to pray until North Korea is free and the Christians can worship Jesus Christ without fear.
George Thomas, CBN News, somewhere near the North Korean border.
Beautiful story. Well, coming up, one nation stands as a beacon of faith in Europe's increasingly secular culture. Pro-life groups in Ireland say they are grieving the vote to legalize abortion in that staunchly Catholic country. The Irish people voted more than 2-1 to repeal Amendment 8, which basically banned abortion. Election officers say more than 1.4 million voters said yes to the appeal, while 724,000 wanted to keep the ban in place. The U.S. Catholic Association says the vote in Ireland reflects the grim influence of the culture of death. Another pro-life group called it a profound tragedy for the Irish people. In an increasingly secularized Europe, one nation has rediscovered its Christian roots and rewritten its constitution to protect the family and the unborn. But as Dale Hurd reports from Budapest, European leaders are not happy about Hungary's renaissance of Christianity.
In a time when most of Europe is in the grips of atheism, there is a nation where Christianity seems to not only be holding its own, but some say is thriving. Imagine a government that is unabashedly Christian, that thinks Christian values are worth defending, that wants to protect and even nourish the family. Welcome to Hungary. Hungary's constitution is explicitly Christian. and says that marriage is between one man and one woman, and that life begins at conception. It even includes the phrase, God bless the Hungarians. Hungary's faith church, with 300 branches, is one of the largest Pentecostal churches in Europe, with 70,000 attenders. And the Hungarian government has taken on the role of protecting Christianity. It's even set up an office to help persecuted Christians worldwide. When CBN News brought to the world the story of Sweden's threat to deport Iranian actress Aydin Stranson back to Islamic Iran, only one nation stepped up and offered her asylum: Hungary. The Hungarian government says taking in persecuted Christians is our moral and constitutional duty.
Hungary wants to protect the European values, the European Christian and Jewish values.
Hungarian policy analyst István Podas says Hungary has only returned to its roots as a historic bastion of Christianity, dating back over 1,000 years, and despite almost 200 years of Muslim Ottoman rule, and after World War II Soviet communist domination. Secretary of State Zoltán Kovács.
You have to stick to your traditions and legacies. Europe's legacy is a Christian legacy, not necessarily in a religious form, but most definitely in a cultural form.
And it's this belief that has Hungary locked in a battle with the European Union over migrants. Mr. Orbán has accused the EU of trying to Islamize Europe, and Hungary has infuriated Brussels by building a fence to keep illegal migrants out. The European Union is ticked because Viktor Orbán has told Brussels to essentially take a hike when it comes to open borders. Hungary has seen the terrorism and chaos caused by migration in Western Europe and has said, not here. The European Union has even gone to court to force Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic to take in migrants. Mr. Orbán has accused Brussels of blackmail.
Securing the borders to stop illegal migration is indeed a solution, and is the only way actually to reinstate law and order at the borders of the European Union, not the other way around.
Kovács says it matters that most of the migrants trying to enter Hungary are Muslim, and he says Western European nations are paying a heavy price by pretending that Islam doesn't matter.
We've been living together or living close to Islam for centuries in the past, and we all know about it. So that's why it does matter who is coming and in what manner people are coming.
Orbán is often portrayed in the Western media as sort of a version of Vladimir Putin, an undemocratic strongman. In fact, at an EU summit a few years ago, the European Commission president reportedly greeted Orbán with the words, "Hello, dictator." Hungary is certainly not a dictatorship, but Orbán's critics accuse him of corruption and using the instruments of government against his political opponents, including the recent billboard campaign against billionaire George Soros.
What we see today in Hungary is the shameless use of public money, of tax money, to formulate pro-government messages.
Since 2010, the Hungarian government has been continuously weakening the system of checks and balances in Hungary and weakening democratic institutions.
But Orbán, a man who even his critics concede is a skilled politician, doesn't have a serious political rival. He will probably remain in power, meaning Hungary's standoff with the European Union over migrants is likely to escalate. But it also means that Hungary will continue to have a government that thinks Christianity is worth protecting. Dale Hurt, CBN News, Budapest.
Coming up, see why officials got it so wrong and miscounted Puerto Rico's death toll after Hurricane Maria by the thousands. Welcome back to Christian World News. A Harvard study is calling into question official reports about the number of Puerto Ricans who died after Hurricane Maria ravaged the island in September. The study says more than 4,000 people died after the storm hit. That number is much higher than the Puerto Rican government's official report of only 64 casualties. Experts say many of the deaths were caused by limited access to health care, electricity, and utility services after the hurricane devastated the island. Well, a new hurricane season begins this month as the island of Puerto Rico is still trying to recover from back-to-back storms last year. A major issue is clean drinking water, and as Heather Sells reports, an unlikely partnership is working to solve that problem.
Last September, Hurricane Maria's 150-mile-an-hour winds led to widespread flooding, knocked out power, and left millions of Puerto Ricans without clean drinking water.
You saw a devastation that was like a war zone.
Union leader Randy Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers visited just 3 weeks after Maria, not knowing how involved she might become or who might work with her to help ease the suffering.
Bottled water was selling for up to $50 a case in the local stores for months after the storm.
Like Weingarten, Bill Horan also witnessed the storm's devastating effects. Horan worked for Operation Blessing, founded by CBN's Pat Robertson. In many ways, the two organizations are polar opposites. Weingarten champions liberal causes and counts Hillary Clinton as a longtime friend. Operation Blessing is an evangelical humanitarian organization with a number of conservative friends and donors. One thing, however, brought Horan and Weingarten together: concern for Puerto Rico and a friendship with San Juan's mayor, Carmen Yulín Cruz.
It was literally like a blessing, because we met with the mayor literally several hours before I left on Sunday.
Randy said, what can we do in the U.S. to help you open those schools? The mayor said, we can open without electricity, we can open without fans and without lights, but we cannot open without safe water.
And she said, and this guy, and she pointed to Bill Horan from Operation Blessing, and she said, and this guy can show you the things that would work here.
Within a week, the AFT and Operation Blessing started Operation Agua. The plan: deliver 100,000 water filters to as many people and schools as possible. Weingarten remembers a frank conversation with Horan before the official launch.
And I said to him, you know who I am, and I know who you are, and when we hear on Twitter or Facebook or, other snarky comments about how dare you work with each other given the ideological differences, I said to him, Bill, I'm in. What say you? And Bill said, I'm in.
Since Hurricane Maria, Operation Blessing has been distributing water filters in community centers like this one all across Puerto Rico.
The AFT has raised almost $2 million to ship close to 80,000 Kohler water filters. Each public school has been able to open, and Operation Agua wants more. It plans to meet its goal of 100,000 filters by October. Here's why it matters. Contaminated drinking water is a long-time problem here. Before the storm, bad management, combined with geography issues, led to a water supply in frequent violation of federal standards. After Maria, power outages virtually prevented water treatment, making it easy for Puerto Ricans to get sick from drinking their own water.
If they don't have access to drinking water, safe sources of water, they will get infected with bacteria, which was the case here and in many other communities.
Thanks to Operation Agua's filters, close to 400,000 people now have clean water in their homes or schools. And by bringing together Operation Blessing and the AFT, there's proof that people can put aside differences for the sake of a greater good.
Working with them has been a joy. We've had a lot of compliments from our colleagues, other Christian NGOs.
We need to ensure that people understand you can find common ground in the caring of people. And I think that story is as important as what we have jointly delivered to the people of Puerto Rico.
Reporting in Puerto Rico, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Well, pastors were circling the U.S. Capitol this week, but it wasn't for exercise. As Paul Strand reports, they were praying for the nation.
Some pastors are so heavenly minded, they think they and their congregation should have nothing to do with the world. But here in Washington, they're finding out why some say the world's business is actually heaven's business, and why it should be theirs too. A group of pastors encouraged to get politically active at Watchmen on the Wall 2018 took one of their most influential weapons, prayer, right to the U.S. Capitol, circling it and praying all the way. They were praying God would shape the laws, the government, the culture, and the nation. Helping them to learn why they should get political and showing them how is David Barton of Wall Builders. He points out pastors were deeply involved in weighing in on and affecting the world's issues throughout most of history.
This thing about pastors not being involved, that's the last 40 to 50 years. That's not the previous 4,500 years, including 350 years of American history. So that's what's fun to show these guys, because then they get liberated and feel like they're free to be able to address some things the Bible addresses.
Back when I was in seminary, we never talked about how to engage in the culture like this. Part of it might have been a fear for getting in trouble somehow with saying things we shouldn't say, get involved with activities that we should not. But I'll tell you, it really is a new day.
Barton took CBN News back to 1775.
The British actually blamed the pastors for the American War for Independence. They named them the Black Robe Regiment because they wore those black robes. They accused them of being the cause of everything, and they were really right. When you look at the Declaration of Independence, every right set forth in the Declaration of Independence had been preached from the American pulpit by 1763.
Pastors here were warned the midterms in 2018 could be just as crucial as the presidential race in 2016, and they and their congregations need to be involved and voting. Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
Thanks, Paul. The Black Robe Regiment. As the church goes, so goes the nation. Thanks for that reminder, Paul. Well, thanks for joining us this week. Until next week, from all of us here at Christian World News, goodbye and have a great weekend. God bless you.